And what I'm going to share with you today, in order to understand what goes on in science and medicine, we have to go back to the beginning of this earth and actually see where we came from there, where we got to the point today. When people are suffering and dying from all kinds of horrible diseases, and suffering and dying from all kinds of drugs, and needless surgeries, and horrible things happening. I will give you an example. This is not a presentation I'm going to make today, but did anybody here, raise your hand if you're aware of this. If you receive a pint of blood in a transfusion that's pooled blood, that means shared blood, meaning not your own brothers or sisters or wives, you may be getting the blood of 2,500 different people in that transfusion. Did anybody know that? Is anybody aware of that? I didn't think so. And you know what the risk is if you get the blood of 2,500 different people mixed in one pint of blood?
100%.
It's phenomenal. And that's another presentation that I make, which most people don't really appreciate too much. But I just thought I'd share it with you. That's just a side note. What I like to... one of my favorite texts in the Bible is this text right here. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. How does the truth make you free? It doesn't make you free if you don't apply it, does it? It's not knowledge. Just knowledge doesn't make you free, does it? It's knowledge applies that becomes wisdom. That's what makes you free. So I'm hoping that the knowledge that I share with you today will help you to become free. Free from fear, and free from desperation, free from manipulation by the, quote, how do I say, higher educated medical world. And I'm not condemning doctors or nurses because that's not my prerogative either. I'm telling you, though, there's a lot of opposition, and it's a miracle that I'm here in this shadow of Loma Hospital and University, that I'm actually here speaking and sharing this presentation with you. I would have never thought that I would go from all the way over there to here, to, like I say, in the shadow, to be presenting this to you. But I'm presenting it today, I hope fearlessly. My wife said, go for it. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to share with you the knowledge I've learned today. And I hope you'll be blessed by it. I want to read you this quote from the Spirit of Prophecy. Our bodies belong to God, and it becomes our duty, not only for our own sake, but for the sake of those with whom we associate, and for the sake of Christ, who has purchased us with the dear sacrifice of His own life, to become intelligent in regard to our own organism, and feel that it is a sacred duty to obey the laws which God has established in our being. It is as much the religious duty of every individual to study the laws of life and obtain a knowledge of how to live as it is to study any of the requirements of the Word of God. Did you grasp that? To know how to live is equal to the Ten Commandments, because it's part of the Ten Commandments. This is found from 19 Manuscript Release 3:14, and the last sentence says, this is a interesting statement. It is impossible to obey the precepts of God while our habits of life are at war with nature. She says it's impossible. And we consider at Seventh-day Adventist Sister White to be prophet of the Lord, messenger of the Lord. So do we believe her or not? If we believe her, and we believe the Word of God, we will live according to what God and His prophet said. If we don't believe, then it'll show in our lives. And we'll set it aside as a fairy tale or an option. At the beginning of the 20th century, very few women smoked at all. It was totally taboo. But now today, when I put this presentation, it was about 2005. It says, today lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in men and women, expected to cause 163,510 deaths in 2005. Now, I'm sure it's a lot more today. Women are surpassing men, or equal surpassing men in deaths from lung cancer, because women are smoking as much or more. Anybody remember that commercial in the 70s from Virginia Slims? You've come a long way, baby. Where the woman was smoking a cigarette, her husband caught her, it's like the turn of the century, and the policeman came in and took her away. Well, believe it or not, that was just about the truth at the turn of the 20th century. But yet you have this picture. On March 31st, 1929, during the Easter parade through Manhattan, New York, a group of women lit cigarettes and smoked publicly while marching down Fifth Avenue for the first time. Now, we might say that women smoking today was societal evolution, but that's not the truth. And I want to share with you how it happened. This is the advertising campaign that came out at the same time in 1929. At the top of this is the famous silent actress that says, an ancient prejudice has been removed. This is an ad campaign, right? Well, the man that was single-handedly responsible for this ad and that woman in the picture you saw back here was this man right here, Edward Bernays. He is considered the father of modern marketing and advertising. He has studied, like Sigmund Freud has studied for psychology. In fact, Sigmund Freud was his uncle. And the only reason Sigmund Freud is popular and famous today and studied is because Edward Bernays, his nephew, resurrected his reputation. When Sigmund Freud was alive, he was a pervert and he was a cocaine addict, and the people who knew him knew that, and he was scorned. But now that he's dead and his nephew has worked on his reputation, he's become the, quote, father of psychology today. Edward Bernays is responsible for those women walking down Manhattan Avenue for the first time in 1929 smoking publicly. And I'm going to let you, in his own words, tell you in a moment how that happened. But I want to tell you how powerful his ideas are, because we're going into the subject of medicine, and we're going to see if we're being manipulated today. Joseph Goebbels was the propaganda minister for Adolf Hitler. Joseph Goebbels was responsible for marketing and selling the idea of killing 6 million Jews to the world and to Germany, to the Germans. Edward Bernays' ideas were so powerful that Joseph Goebbels had a copy of his book, Crystallizing Public Opinion, in his library, and used the same principles of marketing and advertising to sell that program of exterminating the Jews to the German people.
It was called Crystallizing what?
Crystallizing Public Opinion. I'll try and slow down a little bit. This is why. Listen to what Edward Bernays said. You can get practically any idea accepted if doctors are in favor. I have to say amen to that. That's the truth. And you'll see as we go along whether that's true or not. The public is willing to accept it because the doctor is an authority to most people, regardless of how much he knows or doesn't know. Amen. That's the truth, and that scares me to death. We have to go back to the beginning, to the origin of modern medicine. We have to go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, where Satan was speaking to Eve. And the first thing he did was he told her a lie. He said, you shall not surely die. You're going to live forever. You're going to be immortal. And he said, he gave her a truth. He said, in that day you eat, your eyes will be open. Her eyes were open, weren't they? They were open, like we talked about this morning coming over, from the experiencing sin. They were really open, weren't they? But that's not what God intended, was it? And the last part is a lie and the truth mixed together. Ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Eve clearly understood after that good and evil, but she didn't become like God, did she? And remember that one portion, ye shall be as gods, because that's going to come back again in the future. We're going to see that.
He was a good theologian.
Yes. I have a book in my house. I didn't bring it because I couldn't carry it with me. The book was written 100 years into the life of Park Davis, who back in the 60s was the largest pharmaceutical corporation in the world. And in this book, it was called Great Moments in Medicine. All medical history books, the ones I've looked at, and I've looked at a bunch, they all start out with Neanderthal medicine, which if we believe in creation, I don't need to pay attention to that. The second chapter is generally always Egyptian medicine. That's where I believe it all starts. And if you look at the caption, I'll read you the caption under this picture. It says, an Egyptian physician of the 18th dynasty, clothed in clean white linen. Do you know of somebody clothed in clean white linen? That's Jesus Christ, isn't it? As became the dignity of his status, is confronted with a patient having symptoms of lockjaw. With sure sympathetic hands, the physician treats the patient who is supported by a brick chair. It says, and at the bottom it says, look at these men in the forefront bowing down. Specially trained priests observe the prescribed magico-religious rites. And I have on my notes here, remedies included a variety of substances, plant, animal, and mineral, as well as the droppings in the urine of a number of animals. That's pretty disgusting, isn't it? And we're actually, I've got to remember to use my notes here. Do we have another table here? This is from a photograph in a book. It says the image comes from the, quote, Book of the Dead, which was a collection of spells, hymns, and prayers intended to secure a safe passage to the underworld for the deceased. Now, the creature, if you want to call it that, the man with the hat in the front, That is the Egyptian god Horus. Horus was a type of Christ. Horus was designed holding this other man's hand, leading him into, quote, the underworld. Okay? Now, Horus has the head of a falcon and the body of a man. Now, you may ask, how does this apply to us today? In the very next slide, I will show you. You see, this comes from a medical website of an optician, how do you say it? Ophthalmologist. They changed this website, but I saved this because nobody would believe me. And this is the logo on the website. Now look very carefully. You see the RX on one side, and you see the eyeball. If I were to draw a line, diagonal line, through the lash on the bottom of that, it would look just like an RX, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to show you how it works. And then I do it again if you don't see it clearly. Do you see that? Do you want to see it again? I'll do it one more time. Do you see that? That is the eye of Horus, the Egyptian god, leading that person into the underworld. That is the symbol that we use in pharmacy today. It's not recipe as some people want to believe it is. It literally, in some circles, means take this in the name of the gods, plural. And from their website, this is what Dr. Lyle Teska's website said. The eye of Horus, or the, quote, Ujat, becomes a powerful symbol in ancient Egypt. It was worn as an amulet to ensure good health and ward off sickness. The eye of Horus is depicted as a human eye and eyebrow, decorated with the markings seen under the eyes of falcons, since Horus had the head of a falcon. The right eye represented the sun, and the left eye the moon. The right eye is used for our logo. The left eye is the origin of the pharmacy symbol for the prescription RX. So you can see where, when you drive down the road now and you see RX on a building.
Can I see that?
Sure. Make sure you get that to me.
All right.
So you can now clearly see when you drive around and you see Walgreens or someplace with an RX on the building, you know what it means. Now the Bible says, I will put none of these diseases upon thee which I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now you may question, that's Exodus 15:26. What diseases did the Egyptians have? One book I read said the Egyptians had over 200 diseases. I didn't list them all, but let's look at a few. To see if they are the same diseases we have today, having Egyptian medicine, so to speak, practiced on us. Cataracts, parasites, polio, tuberculosis, arthritis, heart disease, cancer, dwarfism, smallpox, malaria, plague, depression, hemorrhoids, ulcers, constipation, diabetes, venereal diseases, leprosy, anemia, headaches, tooth decay, cholera, birth defects, trichinosis, dementia, trachoma, silicosis, and bilharzia, can't even pronounce it. So you see, those diseases are common today, aren't they? Well, let's contrast that with what David said when the Israelites left Egypt and went out in the wilderness for 40 years. He brought them forth with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble person among their tribes. So we see the contrast, the Egyptian way and God's way. Now we're going to move up in time, and we're going to go to 2 Chronicles 16:12. And it's an amazing story of how I found this text, and I won't say it because it'll take too long, but if anybody want to ask me afterwards, I'd be glad to explain to you how this text came to me. And Asa, in the 39th year of his reign, was diseased in his feet until his disease was exceeding great. This is the important part. Yet in his disease he sought not to the Lord, but to the physicians. So he didn't go to God, he went to the physicians of the day. And what was the end result? And Asa slept with his fathers and died in the 140th year of his reign. He died a lost man. Didn't have a picture of this. This is the story of Ahaziah. I think he was the king of Samaria. I believe it was. 2 Kings 1, 2, and 4. He fell then through a lattice in his chamber, and he sent for Elijah. Remember, he sent a messenger for Elijah. Will I come down out of this bed? And what did Elijah say? He said, Now therefore saith thus the Lord, Thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but surely die. Why? Because he sent a message. He inquired of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. So if you go to the wrong source for a diagnosis, you may get an answer that you don't want. And then there was the story of Hezekiah. Is it Hezekiah?
Yes.
Yes. Who had boils and he was going to die. And he wept and prayed before the Lord. And they put a poultice of figs on him. And he lived for another 15 years. So there's a contrast there. And the Bible says Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not his benefits, who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. It's God that heals diseases. Man can cooperate, but man can heal nothing without God.
Amen.
The next chapter in that book I told you about by Park Davis, this is from Babylonian medicine. And the caption said, in a Babylonian throne room, a physician is defending with dignity his professional practice against the complaints of a dissatisfied patient who seeks invocation of the drastic penalties of the code. This is where we get malpractice from. And this is what Park Davis is saying. I never explained this whole thing to us. Now we go to a really important story in the Bible in Mark 5:26 and 25:26. And a certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years and had suffered many things of many physicians and had spent all that she had and with nothing better but grew worse. Did you ever ask yourself who was the physician she was going to and what was going on here? She spent everything she had. She wasn't getting better. She was bleeding, hemorrhaging for 12 years. What healed her? It was the touch of Christ's robe, wasn't it? Well, here's what I believe to be the answer. Another chapter out of this book by Park Davis. And the caption says, every night for nearly 1,000 years, sick and afflicted pilgrims flocked to the Grecian temples of Asclepius to take part in a ritual called incubation. That's where we get the word incubator from. The ancient kindly god of medicine was expected to visit them during a dream state and either heal them or prescribe drugs, diet, and modes of treatment. Now listen to this. Asclepius was considered the principal and the most serious competitor of Jesus Christ by the early Christian church fathers. So it may have been this woman may have been dealing with these physicians for 12 years. Though they attacked Asclepius with vigor and bitterness, early church leaders had to recognize his many parallels between the old God and Jesus Christ. Now listen to how they phrased this. It said, who in early Gospels appeared to be a physician, a healer of diseases, and had performed miracles.
Can you spell that man's name? Asclepius?
A-S-C-L-E-P-I-U-S. There's other variations of the spelling, but that's the one in the book. So they're not giving Jesus Christ credit for anything. They're saying he appeared to be a healer, appeared to be a physician. This is the symbol that the American Medical Association chose a long time ago to be their symbol. And you see this everywhere from the dentist's office to the veterinarians, hospitals, and it's all over. And what this is called the caduceus. I'll spell it. C-A-D-E-U-C-U-S. This is twin snakes on a pole. And if you could see this clearly in the right context, what it is a black snake and a white snake. Being evil and good combined equals balance, equals healing. That's an outright lie. And the staff up and down the middle is actually, these are the wings of Mercury, the god Mercury. And another thing this is, the reason they chose this is because this is a symbol of commerce. And you look at our healthcare industry today, and the trillions and trillions of dollars that are spent, you can see why the American Medical Association chose this as a symbol. Moving along in Park Davis's book, this is Hippocrates, who's considered the father of, quote, modern medicine. And I want to show you what the original Hippocratic Oath looked like, because you don't see this today. The first underlined part, I'll read it to you. I swear by Apollo the healer, by Asclepius, which is the same word, different spelling, by health and all the powers of healing, and call to witness all the gods, plural, and goddesses, that I may keep this oath and promise to the best of my ability and judgment. Gods and goddesses, and swearing an oath to Apollo and Asclepius, this is not something that I want any part of. Now, I have an epidemiology textbook, and remember, with Hippocrates, medicine became a science, right? Well, you look at this picture in the caption, and you tell me if this sounds like science to you. In the futile struggle against the plague, various rituals and costumes were employed by medieval and Renaissance physicians. The costume with the bird-like mask was worn by a physician in Marseille in the belief it would protect the wearer from supposed noxious or air presumed to cause plague. The wand contained incense to ward off impurities. So is this science or what? I thought with Hippocrates, science, medicine became science.
Focus.
That's right. Another chapter. I have to stop and say, health is more than just blood pressure and body mass index and being able to run 15 miles or go on a marathon. Health is mental, spiritual, and physical. And you cannot separate the physical and the spiritual aspect of health. Now, I know some health reformers who say, well, I don't bring up God or the Bible or speak religion or bring anything spiritual into my health message. I'll leave that out because people don't understand that. I don't know how to do that. And this proves the devil knows that you can't separate the physical and the spiritual. This is the oldest existing hospital in the world. And the caption, and again, this is from Parkavis' book, says, the great room of the poor is believed the world's oldest edifice to have been in continuous use as a hospital. It's been there for 500 years. It's been there since 1443. And I want you to get a look at this picture very carefully, because these are nuns. And do these hospital rooms look like confessionals to you? And you see that platform up in the corner there? That is where the priest would go up and hold mass over all these poor, sick people.
And what was the name of this place?
It's called the Great Room of the Poor. And I was amazed when I began to put this together several years ago to find that this still exists today. It's a hotel now, but it's also still a hospital. The platform is either moved or back on the corner. But I was amazed to find out that it still exists today. And I'll give you an analogy here for our next portion. Suppose I have 5 children, and I want to send my children from Tennessee. Say I want to send them here on the bus to meet me here. And so I know the bus takes days and days, 5 days to get here from Tennessee to LA, something like that. And so before the bus leaves, I get on the bus and I say goodbye to all my children, I hug them and I kiss them. And I say to the driver, you will please make sure that my children get over the mountains into California safely. Don't let anything happen. They're the most precious thing in the world. And the bus driver says, oh, sure, I'll make sure they get there safely. In fact, he says, I just came from a 30-day advanced defensive driver training school, and we just learned that Isaac Newton didn't exist. There's no such thing as gravity.
You're in trouble now.
I would take my children off that bus, and I would run as fast as I could. Because if I didn't, something like this might happen, right? And I give you that analogy because of the next segment. It's very important to understand what's going on. Francis Crick and James Watson in 1953 won the Nobel Prize because they came up with the model for DNA, the double helix. Now, they actually didn't develop it themselves. It was actually developed by one of their colleagues, Rosalind Franklin. But if you go back in the 50s, women weren't very well respected, and Rosalind Franklin didn't know what to do with what she had found, so she left it, and they took it over and made a model, and they won the Nobel Prize. They are the fathers of what we consider today genetic medicine. And if you read the paper or go on the internet or have any knowledge all over the world, everything is genetic today, isn't it? Breast cancer is genetic. They even say alcoholism is genetic, and there's a gene for everything. Well, let's see if Crick and Watson were like this poor bus driver. This is what Francis Crick had to say. The God hypothesis is rather discredited. It's astonishing to me that people continue to accept religious claims. People like myself get along perfectly well with no religious views. And I want to tell you, these two men, both of them, went to science late 40s or 50s in order to prove that God doesn't exist. And the most shocking one is what Watson had to say. He said, only with the discovery of the double helix and the ensuing genetic revolution have we had grounds for thinking that the powers held traditionally to be the exclusive property of the gods might one day be ours. Remember what Satan said to Eve? You'll be like God. This man is telling us we're going to become gods. And these are the two men who are the, quote, fathers of genetic medicine today. Just like that poor bus driver. What does the Word of God say? The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. I'm sorry, but when you deny God's existence, you become fools. Now we're going to move into the goal of modern medicine. And I'm moving really fast here. Maybe I should slow down. Because my mother used to say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if you look in the spirit of prophecy, Sister White will be talking about sincerity alone will not save anyone. A man can be on the wrong road, basically, and end up in the wrong place. Right? So good intentions are not enough for anybody. It's good intentions with proper principles and the Holy Spirit guiding you that will lead you the right direction. Remember what Satan said to Eve? You shall not surely die. That's an important thing to remember, because this next slide comes from this book, which if you were at the meeting last night, I shared with you. It's called Conquest of Death. And it says a controversial look at the revolution in medicine and why we may be the last generation to die. The only way I want to be in the last generation to die is if Jesus comes. Not according to what they want. Now this chart, if you can see this chart, it says, it was written in 1979. By 1997 to 1998, we will have reached a point where we know almost everything about the body. We might refer to this point as the penultimate knowledge. At a present rate of growth, the penultimate knowledge will be here in less than 20 years. They were planning the year 2000, which has already gone by. So apparently it didn't work. It seems unbelievable that after thousands of years of searching and remaining in a state of relative ignorance, we may be nearing, quote, total knowledge of our biological selves in less than 20 years. So what they were saying in this book is, when we get to that point, we can live forever. Live forever how? In sin. Because you remember, according to Crick and Watson, and the evolution that's practiced in medicine, there is no God. Now, does anybody know who this is?
Lou Gehrig.
No. You don't know, I'll tell you. Ted Williams. Now, Ted Williams was considered the greatest one of the greatest baseball players ever. Now, when he died in 2002 at the age of 83, he had signed a will saying that his ashes would be cremated and his ashes would be scattered over the Florida Keys or somewhere. But then his children got in an argument about whether or not he wanted to be frozen in nitrogen to be resurrected in the future, because he supposedly had signed a piece of paper with his hand. They did handwriting experts with him and looked at it, and there was a big battle with his heirs. And he ended up, see if I can do this right. That's what he looked like before he died. I'm getting ahead of myself. He ended up in a container like this at a place called Khor. It's out in the desert. I believe it's in Arizona near Phoenix.
Yeah, I put in their computer system when they used to be in Riverside. I actually put the computer system in their building.
Wow. But Ted's got a problem because his head's in one container and his body's in another. Now, if you look at the symbol on this container very carefully, the bird behind the man with his arms raised is a phoenix.
Right.
That's an ancient mythological bird that when it's incinerated in a fire, rises from the ashes to live again. Reincarnation, we politely call it. Well, here they have a man also rising up out of the ashes. So what Ted Williams is expecting is to be resurrected. By who? Somebody tell me by who? Not by God. Now, I got bad news for you. Ted is going to be sorely disappointed when he wakes up. If he wasn't ready to die and he's not been resurrected, he didn't get his money's worth. And what's going to happen to him if he wasn't ready? He's going to be sorely disappointed. That's where medicine is going. Eternal life in sin. This book, I cover this book, if you can see this carefully, there's a man at the bottom, and he's packed in ice. And the title of the book is called The Prospect of Immortality. And what it is, without my notes here, the table's not where I want it to be. It's okay.
That's Edinger?
Yes, Edinger. What they're planning is, this book is, let's say, you were Ted Williams, and 35 years from now, they resurrect you and all your diseases are cured. What happened to your bank account when you, quote, you didn't die, you were in suspended animation? What if your wife, quote, was she your wife, was she able to get remarried? What about your children? Did they inherit your property? Were you in suspended animation? What about the legalities of being, quote, suspended in nitrogen being resurrected? Do you still have your property? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This book covers all the emotional and spiritual and legal and financial aspects of becoming immortal in this sense. But I want to read you something out of this book which gives you an idea of where these people are going. This is from page 135 of the same book. The result is wonderful. We've lost our souls, but gained heaven. Heaven on earth.
You said they became fools.
That's right. in a certain sense. Perhaps few of us, even if intellectually convinced that identity is an illusion and death therefore unimportant. Is death unimportant? Well, to the Christian, the first death, to me, I don't want to go there, but it's not that big of a deal. It's that second death I don't want to participate in. A few of us, even if intellectually convinced that identity is an illusion and death therefore unimportant, may be able to translate this into emotional acceptance or will want to. But can we persuade ourselves that death need never be regarded as absolutely final? And when you begin to read this book, it's pretty horrible. This is where science and medicine is going, though. The freezer program represents for us now living a bridge to an anticipated golden age. That has to be heaven if there's such a thing on earth, because it's not the golden age living with Jesus forever. When we shall be reanimated to become Superman with indefinite lifespan. Indeed, even the term Superman may eventually become inappropriate, just as man is not aptly described as a super amoeba, even though we evolved from a one-celled organism. So they're evolutionists. They're telling you that right here.
Right.
But listen to this statement. At first thought, this cannot be other than a most disturbing prospect to the Christian, to the Muslim, or the Jew, since it seems to promise to leave Jesus, Muhammad, and Moses behind in the midst of the pre-gone. I don't want to leave Jesus behind. I want to live with him forever in heaven. But these people are going to leave him behind if they have their way, which they never will.
They already have left him behind.
And I want to share with you a couple headlines from a couple articles that I have. I won't read the whole articles. This is along the same line. Scientists find molecular path to fear. So fear is not something that comes from our mind or from the devil or from God. It's a molecular thing. We can fix that with a chemical. Experts tinker with evolution to create human built to last. How we can live to be 100 or 200, 300, 800, 1,000. Now, of course, this is all immortality in sin. Because if you were to find a cure for cancer and diabetes and strokes and all diseases were ended, what would we have on earth here? It wouldn't be heaven on earth. We'd have a world full of Saddam Husseins and Adolf Hitlers and Hugo Chavez and Castros and Genghis Khans. We would have a world that would be absolutely chaos. Science is planning to make new form of life. This one's shocking. Scientists find key to eternal life. They haven't found the key to eternal life. The key to eternal life is in the Word of God, isn't it? Listen to this quotation. And I will tell you who Dr. Lawrence Lamb is, unless you already know. Many people alive today will have their opportunity for a greatly prolonged lifespan. Even immortality now seems possible. This is from this book, what Alvin Silverstein said. So far, death has always triumphed in the end. But today, for the first time, we are at the threshold of a new era in which dying may no longer be inevitable. Arthur Clarke. Death does not appear to be biologically inevitable. Now this one, again, is Dr. Lawrence Lamb.
Isn't Dr. Clarke dead?
I suppose they all are, except for this one here.
Oh.
I know Alvin Silverstein is. What can happen will happen, and immortality can and will happen. This is from Dr. Lawrence Lamb. Now I'm going to tell you who Dr. Lawrence Lamb is. He was Lyndon Baines Johnson, President of the United States. He was his personal physician, so he's not a crackpot. And he is also the person that almost single-handedly put together the medical aspect of our space program back from 1960. So he is not considered a screwball or a fanatic. He's at the top of his field. Look at the cover of this book. The Coming Age of a Young Doctor, Learning to Play God. And look at the review from the New York Times. Clear, immediate, and moving. Provides as good a feel for the texture of medical training as any I've read. There's a difference between God's medicine and man's medicine. Man's medicine leads to immortality and sin and fixing symptoms. God's medicine is healing physically and spiritually, leading to eternal life.
Amen. You know, I just noticed that the God that they're talking about is not Jesus Christ. Learning to play God that God is the devil.
That's absolutely right. And you can see why I'm amazed that I'm here in the shadow of Loma Linda presenting this to you, because I presented this program before, and I don't get a lot of opposition from people coming from the world or the common people sitting in the church. But when it comes to doctors of medicine, Adventist doctors of medicine and nurses, I run into a
stone wall.
Well, it's more than a stone wall because it's active, but it's out there. So you are a unique audience today getting to hear this at Loma Linda. Deuteronomy 32:29 says, "See now that I, even I am He, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal." That is the exclusive prerogative of the God of Abraham, Moses, Jesus Christ. This is exclusively God's prerogative to heal and to kill and to wound and make alive.
That's right. Amen.
And we even have some people that believe God doesn't kill. This is God Himself saying.
There it is. What more proof do you need?
Now, this is important. I know the sound works now. August 6, 1945, we dropped a atomic bomb on Hiroshima. We called it Little Boy. And it didn't make the Japanese surrender. So 3 days later, we dropped another bomb called Fat Man on Nagasaki, Japan. And when that happened, the casualties, look at the dead. 66,000, this is immediate death. Some people died off in the future. 66,000 for Hiroshima and 39,000 for Nagasaki. That's what, just over 100,000, maybe 108, 106,000. I'm not going to do the math. And we still talk about that today. And some people are so angry about that. We killed all of those people instantly, fried them, cooked them, turned it into ashes. Well, you remember what happened in Katrina? There was probably anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 people who died in that storm in New Orleans. And this poor woman, Vera, she died. They didn't even dig a hole for her. They just threw a tarp and some bricks over her to cover her body. And people are still talking about that today, aren't they? And that was a tragedy. But I want to give you some statistics here that will relate. Say we make up some statistics, okay? They just don't have to be accurate. They'll hold me to them. Say Orlando, Florida, 213,000 people. And let's say Springfield, Illinois, 115,000 people. And then let's add New Orleans, let's say 455,000 people. And let's say a storm came through to all three of these cities and wiped out every man, woman, and child in this number.
Okay.
What would that total to? 783,000? Did I give you a total yet?
Something like that.
783,000 people.
Right.
Would we ever forget that?
No.
We never would we? Now remember, we only killed 100-some thousand with 2 atomic bombs. So this is a pretty high number, right? Theoretical number. Well, let's look at this report. I have this report. It's 45 pages long. It's called Death by Medicine. And you can get a copy of this by going to Google and searching Death by Medicine. And you will bring up this report. Most of the 20, 25 pages are footnote references where it came from. And they studied, put all these things together and studied, and they came up with an average of modern medicine in all forms killing 783,936 people a year.
A year.
A year. A year. But they're not done in mass group like what happened in Katrina or the bomb. It's one at a time. It's 2 at a time. It's 1 at a time. And so we don't pay attention to those statistics because, you see, those people had good intentions. They were doing the best they could for our mothers, our brothers, our children, our loved ones. Now, you can look this article up and see if this is bogus or not. I happen to believe it's true. And if the figures were calculated a little differently, it would come up over 1 million. Now, think of that.
And the money would be more, too.
That's right. And this figure is probably a lot higher than 282 billion now, because this is probably a couple of years old. This article, I printed this in 2003. I'm sure it hasn't gotten better. And this is my last slide for this short presentation. The public is shocked when they hear that 80% of medical practice is not based on evidence. I was totally shocked when I read this. And this man works for the federal government. Now, you may ask, if it's not based on evidence, what is it based on? It is based on something, right? It's based on consensus and expert opinion. Now, if all of us in this room were theologians, and we sat around the table and we voted that God was the jack-in-the-box symbol, would that make it so?
No.
Suppose we decided we were scientists, we decided the Earth was flat. Would that make it flat? It wouldn't. Do you realize the impact of this man saying 80% is not based on evidence? That's just about all of it. Now, could that include some surgeries? Could that include drugs?
Looks like 80% of them.
Could that include blood transfusions? That includes just about everything. It could, couldn't it? So you have to ask yourself, if I'm participating in what modern medicine gives me, well, I wonder if there's another way. I'm telling you, from what I've studied about natural healing and herbs and remedies and God's plan, there is another way, and it is not the alternative. Not in my house. It is reality. What you just saw is the small alternative. It should be the alternative. Now I'm going to stop here because the next program is about drugs, which is the one you really want to see. And I have to call it, "What's this stuff made of? Dirty Little Secrets." I couldn't think of any other way to phrase it, because when you find out what the medicines we're taking are made of, you will, first of all, you might not believe it. If you believe it, you'll say, "I got to have a copy of that," which my handout guy is right there. He will give you a copy when it's time. And I will document what I say. So we're going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions?
I had one. Mark Davis, that book you kept mentioning. What was the title of it?
Great Moments in Medicine.
Okay.
It was an absolute miracle how I obtained that book. There are many miracles in what you just saw. Because you can't go out and buy this book now. I got it for like a quarter. Didn't realize what I had in my hand. Because when I go to I love books too, and I go to the used bookstore, and I dig through the bins.
I got miracles in my house too.
And so this whole presentation is based on miracles. If you have no questions, we'll take a break. What time's the next meeting? Tell me you have the next meeting. My watch is 3 hours.
Great moments in medicine.
2. So we have time for lunch there. Right. Okay, because I'm out of my league here. I shut this down. If you have any comments or questions, now would be a good time to ask them or bring them up. I will tell you this while I'm standing here before we leave for lunch. Initially, I'm not a public speaker. I had no intention of ever sharing any of this information with anybody. But God has taken me on a course, which is a miracle today, to take me from where I wouldn't even, how do I say this, step into a church, let alone kneel to pray, let alone sing a hymn, let alone speak to more than one person on an individual basis, because that's not me. I'm very shy, and I had no use for religion or God. I was raised a Seventh-day Adventist, but I left the church. I was out of church for 18 years. And God's taken me on a path where my testimony, like your testimony you were going to say, it's amazing what God can do for you. And how God educates you and puts you where He wants you to be. And all the way from that point years ago, being here, near Loma, speaking to a group of people that want to hear truth. God is good. Let's pray before we break for lunch. Dear Heavenly Father, first of all, we want to thank You so much for loving us and sending Jesus to suffer and die for each one of us. Help us never forget the great gift of Your Son's sacrifice that's been made for us. Help us to live every day as if it were our last. Help us to be prepared for our probation to close. Help us to be ready to die for You, but also to live for You. Help us now as we go through the Sabbath to enjoy fellowship with one another, and to keep our thoughts and our minds and our actions holy on Your Sabbath, and to be prepared to witness to the world, to the people that want to hear of Your soon coming. In Jesus' name, amen.